Here's Chapel Hill in Tennessee. Go ahead to Margaret.
Yes, sir.
Morning.
I forget the man's name. Good
Mike
morning,
Evans.
and thanks
Yep.
for C-SPAN. I just think that he's using a lot of word games right now, but I have to say that he was right about the Nobel Peace Prize not being that important since it was given to Henry Kissinger. Now, I find Mr. Carter to be a very honorable man. He didn't get us into any secret wars or trade any weapons for hostages. Now, here's my two questions, sir, and please don't evade them again. You've already done it at least once. What branch of the military did you ever serve in, sir? And what is your party affiliation? But since you've said you're an evangelical, I'm pretty sure you're one of the neocons. But I'd like those two questions answered. And thank you, C-SPAN, again. And I'm enjoying your book this month, your book hour this month. I hope you continue this.
Thank you.
I served in the Army. I was a medic in the Army. I wasn't in Vietnam, but I was in Korea. I worked at a 44th Surgical Hospital in Korea. But I was horrified when I came back from Korea, from the hospital, because people were spitting on me, calling me a baby killer. And I couldn't wear my uniform because of it. That's the military I served in. Now, politically, I am a Republican. Honestly, an embarrassed Republican. I don't agree with a lot of the positions that have been taken in the last few years with the Republican Party. I hope I answered your questions.
You write in your book about the war in Iraq. While the liberal left in America screams that the mess in Iraq and the war on terror have been caused by the Republican presidency of George W. Bush, the truth is that the entire nightmare can be traced back to the liberal democratic policies and the ultra-liberal leftist Jimmy Carter. But wasn't it President Bush's decision to go into both Afghanistan and Iraq based on not Carter policies, but based on the reaction to the bombings at the attacks of 9/11?
Well, what you fundamentally had is this. You had a summit in the French island of Guadeloupe with the President of France, Giscard d'Estaing. You had the German Chancellor and the British Prime Minister. Those three met there. Giscard d'Estaing.
What year are we talking about?
79, January. You had the President of France telling me, here, a direct quote, Carter told us that he was overthrowing the Shah of Iran and he was going to put Gandhi in, and everything has been worked out. Carter, here's a quote from the President of France, Carter is a bastard of conscience. I could not believe. I said, couldn't you have stopped it? What can we say? He said, it's already done. Now, this was in January. February 1st, Khomeini arrives back in France, and on the plane is filled with two groups, terrorists and journalists. Peter Jennings was on the flight. Why did they have 120 journalists, and the rest of them were terrorists who were on the plane with Khomeini coming back into France to take the country?
This is Windermere, Florida. Good morning, Frank, on a Republican line. Hi.
Good morning.
Morning.
Frank, Mr. Evans, my name is Frank Cross, and my belief is that the Federal Reserve Bank, when they raised the interest rates so high, that was the reason that the Jimmy Carter's presidency was destroyed. Secondly, I understand that your name is not really, that's not your real name, and I was wondering if it's not, if you could tell us your real name.
My real name is my name, Mike Evans. I've never used any other names but that name. That's the name on all my books. I don't know anything about the Federal Reserve matter. I only know that I lived through the situation, and I was close to the Prime Minister of Israel at the time and watched it very carefully. I do believe that Iran was the reason the president lost his presidency. And I do believe and know for a fact that he funded the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, provided French and Chinese arms to them to go fight, we call it the Mahujim, to go fight the Russians in Afghanistan, and that created the organization that we're dealing with right now.
Next to Babylon, New York. Good morning, Bezad. Good morning, how are you? Bezad, good morning, you're on the air. I'm going to put him on hold and go to Noblesville, Indiana. This is Karen on our Independence line.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
Early on in your statement, you had said that Jimmy Carter rose up through the power of, I think, the peanuts, his peanut farm. But could you elaborate a little bit more on the fact that he was kind of an unknown who, and this is in Zbigniew Brzezinski's book, that Nelson Rockefeller met him at a conference and introduced him to his brother, David, and Brzezinski then schooled and tutored him on foreign matters, and then he immediately became a charter member of the newly formed Trilateral Commission that these two men had formed. And when he got in, he was, through a landslide, 30% of his members of his cabinet were Trilateral Commission members. This sounds a lot like Obama, who has been schooled and tutored by these same men. So many people in the media never discuss the similarities of these two presidents. Can you elaborate on that for us?
Well, that's why I wrote the book, to compare them. They both ran, as I mentioned, on Hope and Change. They both ran during a time of an unpopular President Bush and Nixon, and unpopular wars, Vietnam, we had Watergate, we had Iraq. The American people were ready for something, and they both controlled the House and the White House. It was a real problem. I see the potential for problems with Obama. I was hoping that maybe President Obama can learn from Jimmy Carter's mistakes and not repeat the same ones.
Well, back specifically to the subtitle of your book, A Carter-Obama Plan That Will Not Work, on the Middle East, what is it about President Obama's Middle East plan, or the things he'd like to do in the Middle East, that are similar to Jimmy Carter's, and that you think won't work?
Good question, Bill. The Saudi plan. Obama supports what's called the Saudi plan. I've discussed this matter with the Prime Minister's key advisors.
Prime Minister of Saudi
Arabia?
Of Israel.
And here's what they've said to me. Can we ever accept this plan? No. Why can't they accept it? Because to accept the plan, they have to comply with resolutions 242, 338. They have to go back to pre-67 borders. And they have to bring the refugees from Lebanon, which many of them are terrorists, into the land of Israel. In addition, they have to give up airspace. They can never give up airspace. There's zero warning time on airspace. Secondly, they have to permit an army to be developed, an army with distances of literally feet,
meters. This would be a Palestinian army?
A Palestinian army, when the distances are feet, meters, and treaties where the Palestinians could form treaties with enemies of Israel, such as Iran and Syria. Now Israel stops Iran from smuggling into Gaza. I've been there during the last war, but then they could do nothing. Israel can't possibly do this, and this is a cruel joke to the Palestinians, to keep baiting them, to promise them something that's not realistic is a cruel thing to do.
How often do you get to the Middle East?
All the time. I most likely will be there when I leave here.